Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Kelly Salmons. Mrs. Kelly, how are you doing, ma?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
And also, Mrs. Kelly, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a speaker and a coach. Can you please, Mrs. Kelly, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Kelly?
Sure. I really struggled when I was became an empty nester when my children moved out of the house. And so it's been a journey. I decided to start um, working on personal development and all the things that I needed to do. And it's taken me several years to get from being totally lost and crying over what are we going to have for dinner because I was so overwhelmed I couldn't make a decision to being able to create a community for women to come together and um, transition and grow and evolve from being a full-time mom to becoming, you're still a mom, you'll always be a mom, but becoming your best self so that you can go out and do amazing things in the world because now it's your turn to shine. And so in my book, I share kind of that journey. I'm a co-author where there's a bunch of us and we all talk about um, you can overcome anything when you refuse to give up. And so my I talk about my experience in going through all of that. And as part of that, like I said, I created this community to work with women to help them be able to move through this transition because it can feel really lonely, but it's you're on that verge of just amazing beauty and peace and joy in doing what you really want and following your life's purpose.
It is absolutely not easy, most especially as a mother who has spent many years with her children, showing the sense of coming together, eating together, doing everything together, and having the sense that they are actually losing them. They are actually going their own way to actually, move forward. It's for their own betterness. It is 100% not easy. And to use that as a source to actually create a sense of strength in bringing women around you and also using that as a source to connect with others is absolutely beautiful, and which would also be a source of the book you also co-authored. I would just like you to discuss more on the book. And do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Kelly?
Sure. The book was just a great opportunity to the whole point of the book, and there's several of us, is to share a time when we refused to give up. And for me, that was working through my journey of I was in a personal development class trying to figure out because I had always been really good at solving things and putting my list together and doing all the things to get the kids where everybody needed to go and supporting the family. And I worked too. Um, and so I went back and one of the questions in this professional development class was um, when was there a time that you you know, were going to do it no matter what? You were going to get this thing done. And I sat and I thought about it. And I went to the Naval Academy that's where I went for university. And there are all kinds of hoops that you have to jump through. And I kind of looked back at that and recognized how strong and amazing and like how cool I was back then. And, as a teenager, I could do that. Well, as a 50-year-old, 54-year-old woman, I did that before. Why can't I do that now? I have all this life experience. And that was like such a pivotal point for me because I recognized it's all in me and I have it. I just had stopped connecting to what was inside me. And so that's the story that I share about being at a really low point, but then having that opportunity and being reminded of my strength and then how I've taken that strength forward. So,
Absolutely beautiful, Mrs. Kelly. To be
yeah.
honest with you, and that is what many people face. I think what usually causes most of the time is when one has gotten to the point of, marriage and having kids, taking care of kids. we tend to get to the point whereby we start to, losing the sense of strength that we are when we are actually young. We go to the point whereby we want to make everything to be right. And that, gave us to the, bring us to the point whereby we now begin to have the sense of looseness, of weakness. And that is why reflection is very good. As a parent, we need to start to take on how we are during those times so that we can know the strength that was within us those times, to bring it out back, to show the strength, and also bring the sense that we can actually do many things more better regarding the circumstances we find ourselves. And these are also what many women, they're also facing in our time today. Many women, and also many women spend years. They spend years defending themselves by who they care for. And who women care for most of the time is their children, their family, and most especially probably their work. If they have work, they are actually, working on. So how do you think someone can try their best to begin to rediscover themselves, who they are outside of their roles and responsibilities, Mrs. Kelly?
So first, I'd say that, like for me,
Yes.
I loved being a mom. And I did. I put my dreams aside. I put my, I kind of put those things aside, but I still was really strong, juggling all of the activities and the work and the kids and the spouse and I wouldn't trade it. I don't regret it. I would do it again, because I was able to help support them, both my husband and my children, in reaching for their dreams and achieving their dreams, which were in a sense my dreams. So that's in itself is a powerful thing, and it's a wonderful thing. Um, but now that they've moved out and they're out chasing those dreams, it's that quiet is really loud.
Yeah.
That change of tempo is so dramatic. And I thought, oh, I was going back into education and I was teaching and I was do all these things, and it didn't fulfill me, and what I thought was going to help fill that void didn't happen. And so I really had to do a lot of work on how do I find that strength again, and how
Yeah.
do I connect with it. So one, I think, was recognizing it. But even before that, you have to have some acceptance as to where you are when that transition happens. And I say a lot, acceptance is your compass, because you have to be able to sit still and be quiet and really just listen to where you're at. And a lot of times we don't know how to do that because we're so used to the hustle and the bustle and the move and the go. And so for me, that was important to, I went on a retreat and had a few days where I just sat in that place of stillness, um, so that I could figure out where I was at. And I have an exercise where you write down a couple of compliments or things that your friends or your family might say about you that you're really great at. And kind of, you may not accept that. You may be like, nah, but sit and listen to it and read it, take a few breaths, sit with it, then go look in the mirror and not look at, oh, is my makeup fine? Is my hair pretty? Whatever. Look yourself in the eye and say those compliments to yourself, so that you're really you're telling yourself these compliments. How do you feel with that? Where does that take you? And then, if you can, take a step back and say, okay, I love you. You are enough. And can you say that to yourself freely, or do you tear up? Can you not say it to yourself? And that is kind of the place where you have to start, because when you don't have dreams, and because you've been helping and supporting everyone else's dreams, you need to come back to that place of where you're at, and love yourself, so that you can then dream, so that you can then move forward with what it is that you really want to do, even if you don't know what it is you want to do yet, but work on that. So that would be the first thing. And then journal, like, or write it down, or just, spit it all out and how that made you feel. And can you say that to yourself? Because that's really important, a place to start.
I sincerely appreciate that. It shows that, despite how things has gone through, despite the ups and downs that's happened within the family, one moving on, and we feeling like we're actually going back to be more lonely and more weaker, we can use that as a source of sense, strength rather. And if we want to do that, we have to recognize it. When we recognize it, we have to accept it. Acceptance is very, very important, because if we do not accept it, we're in a position whereby we're causing more damage. And the way we are causing more damage is that we're in a position whereby we do not want to accept that there is something actually wrong that we want to deal with. And we are in a position whereby we're just there. But we want to be in a position to accept, then recognize, then see how we can use that as a source of strength and also growth. And as you said, beautiful things, journaling. I've heard a lot of people, who have said they used what they journaled is what actually made them actually bring out a very good and profound book for people to actually read. So those are the things that can really help us to actually build our sense of strength and also make things actually work more better. I know you drive to the point whereby a woman or a person can actually regain those strengths and rebuild confidence in one way or the other when they feel like they are actually getting more weaker. But now,
Mhm.
when they are struggling with something we call guilt, why focusing on themselves after years of putting others first? Who are those they are putting first? Their families, their children. Now they have to look for themselves. It will be really hard to transform back to that position. How do you think they can give themselves that permission to prioritize their own growth without feeling the sense of selfishness, Mrs. Kelly?
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, I give you permission. If you need somebody to give you permission, I give you permission. Um, a lot of it is, when you move into that transition and that space, um, you just have to think about, what is it do you want that you want? You have like 30 years of your life yet left. That's longer than your child may have lived at home. In most cases, 18, 20, maybe 25, they're moving out. Like, you've got all this life left to live. So you need to ask yourself, what is it that I want? What do I want my day to look like? And when you start asking, what would make me happy? When you start asking yourself those questions, that allows you to then go ahead and start thinking about what those next things can be, but also how you can become the best person that you need to be. Like, if you're on an airplane, they always tell you put your mask on first, right? So now you've got all the little beings out of the house. You need to put your mask on it, and you need to be comfortable with who you are, grow into who you are, and become the woman you've always been meant to be. Um, and then that way you'll be able to show up not only for yourself, but for your spouse or other family members
Yeah.
that are important to you, for your grown children, maybe for your parents who may need now help and support, but also for the world. As women age, we're we become these wise women, right? You look through history, you look through culture, you look through everything, and there's always the wise woman or the old crone or whatever. And that's really important because we bring knowledge and experience to share with the younger generation. And that's important. And so you need to be your best self so that you can go and continue to share and support the world with whatever your purpose is. And that's your next evolution. Like, that's you growing into who you're supposed to be.
I sincerely appreciate that beautiful insight, to be honest with you. We are now in a position whereby we are saying, despite the age, despite we growing more older, it is a source of inspiration for those who are coming. Because those who are coming, most especially in this hard time, is not easy. And that is why we have a very huge anxiety among the younger ones. A lot of young people are being misled, and due to the sense of moral. when we say people who actually want to tell us the absolute truth. And women who are actually more older are the ones that are wise enough to actually show the sense of companion and show the sense of support. And that is why, despite a woman being aged, it is actually an opportunity to bring people back to themselves and also bring a sense and also a source to actually make people to be more stronger. But we wouldn't do that to the point whereby we feel selfish or in one way or the other, but we be in a position whereby we are actually prioritizing our growth and also prioritizing other people as well. And also,
Right.
you said something that was very beautiful at the beginning of the conversation. You said a person has to be sure, they have to accept and they have to actually try their best to actually, work on themselves. And, when someone is avoiding a situation whereby maybe the kids are gone, I think they are not feeling more lonely and weaker, and also they are feeling like they are actually healing from those situations, so they are now becoming more stronger. So
Mhm.
sometimes, to be honest, emotional wellness, could be all about not feeling really happy. How do you think a person can recognize the difference when they're actually having this sense of emotional avoidance? They're avoiding the issue, and or they're actually healing, or they're having the sense of emotional healing in their journey, Mrs. Kelly.
So I did a lot of emotional avoidance when I first moved into being an empty nester. I really love to read fantasy books. I read a lot of fantasy books. I would go to work, I'd come home, I was in, just I'd get into a book, and part of it was a way of stopping my brain from overanalyzing and just constantly trying to figure out, okay, why am I acting like this? What's wrong with me? Why can't I figure out what I want? Why are like my creative juices not flowing? So part of my avoidance or escapism was to silence that, just to have a break from it. Um, and I would kind of numb my mind so that I could just have a break. Because at that point, I thought, oh, well, that's going to allow me the break so that I can then figure out where I'm at. But of course, I just get into the book and read more books. Um, Emotional healing, that's acknowledging and processing where your feelings are at. And I think, obviously we've talked about acceptance, but I also think that taking finding some activities that maybe are interesting to you, um, and taking that action to do one of those activities. It doesn't have to be a big activity. Um, I mean, some days it was, okay, I got out of bed and I sat quietly, but I wasn't still in bed. I mean, and that may be where some people are at, right? Um, it may also be that you could take a walk. You could meet up with some friends, find some healing in that sense of community with others. But it's that taking action, and if you're really in a bad place, then look for a therapist or see a professional, about those things. But I think a lot of it is just finding an activity that allows you to move forward. And as you take a small action and you were like, oh, that wasn't so bad, then that might help you be like, oh, well, I kind of liked that. Okay, well, let me do another action. Okay, well, let me take another step. And the big thing is you don't need to be perfect. It can be totally messy. That's okay. But at least you're taking that action, and you're doing something. And as you start doing that, you'll start to heal. So in my journey, I was like, okay, I tried this and I tried all kinds of things, and nothing really, like, it would kind of spark some interest, and then I'd go and I'd be like, nope, that wasn't it. And then I took a master class. It was $17 for a master class in real estate. And I took that and I was like, I actually know a lot about real estate. I had worked with a real estate investor in my past. And I was like, okay, I could do this. And it sparked something in me. And I had, moved away from like leading things and organizing events for activities that I was involved in. And all of a sudden I was like, hey, I'm going to this event and I don't know anybody. Hey, let me set up a meetup for everybody that's just brand new so that we had people to connect with, bringing that sense of community back, which is, always important. But also I wanted to lead something again. And at that point I recognized, hey, I'm not reading as many books anymore. Oh, wow, look at that. I'm starting to heal. And so finding that little thing, and it doesn't have to be the rest of your life thing, but it could be that thing for right now to allow you to start taking action, to take those next steps to move forward. So that's, really it's a take action on something, on anything. And it can be totally messy and not perfect. It's better if it's not perfect, because that can sometimes slow us down and pull us back to avoiding again.
I sincerely appreciate the beautiful insights, Mrs. Kelly. It shows that no matter how little action we take, we can actually get to the sense of emotional healing because we do not usually know most of the time when we are in the face of emotional avoidance. We do things that we are always comfortable with. But when we now go outside the league, that is outside the ground, outside the box of everything we are doing, we are now getting to the point whereby we are seeing new things and now we are getting through the point of emotional healing. It is when we take things that we are not even really comfortable with, things that we never even see, that could even not even make sense at times. Those might even be
Right.
the things that actually help us to actually groom, become more better, and become our old self, which is what we are actually finally looking for in ourselves as women, and also people who have actually learned and also been wise enough to actually deal with several situations on earth. I would also like to dive to women who have suppressed their need for years. During the
Mm-hmm.
recent years, women, when they've have children, kids, they've really gotten to a point whereby they've suppressed their needs for those several times. And it could really feel uncomfortable to choose themselves when they've gotten to a certain stage. So, from the experience you've had, Mrs. Kelly, what do you think are some of the mindset shifts that could help them move from self abandonment to self acceptance, Mrs. Kelly?
Um, I was really stuck. And so like that over analyzing, that analysis paralysis of wanting to figure out what to do next. Um, it- like I said at the beginning, at the top, my husband was like, well, what do we want to have for dinner? And I remember I just started crying,
Mhm.
right? And because I just was overwhelmed, I was like, I don't know. And so something that's been really helpful and that I find has helped others is that when you need to make a decision, like what's for dinner, set a timer. Like, okay, you got 5 minutes. Like, this is not a life or death decision here. This is just okay, great. What do we want to have for dinner? What am I going to wear today? And set that timer and boom. Okay, there's your timer. 5 minutes is up. Fine. You're having chicken today. That's what you're having. Because it relieves stress because the decision's made. You're not sitting there and then getting stuck in the wow, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Um, and for larger items or more consequential things, maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's 2 days, because you might have to do research or whatever, but set a time limit on it. Put it on your calendar or put it in your phone or whatever. And that way, um, you make the decision and then you might move down the road and say, oh, well, that wasn't the right decision. Okay, change the decision, do something different. But again, it's the decisions made so that you can take action and move forward. And why is that important? Well, because you really need to do that, um, so that then you can get back to that. Okay, the decisions are made. Now I can come back to myself and sit and be with myself so that I can figure out where I'm at. Um, you know, One thing is, how do you talk to yourself? Like, talk to yourself. Do you talk to yourself like you would talk to your grandmother? You should talk to yourself like you talk to your grandma, right? because you're going to talk to your grandma in most cases with love and with compassion and with grace. And that's how we need to talk to ourselves, because we're so hard on ourselves. So I think that's another thing that's really important in helping shift your mindset. I used to say, oh, I have my wine sheet. And on the wine sheet, every time I would like whine or complain to myself or put myself down, I would like put a tally mark and I would track it for a couple of days and then look at it and be like, wow, I'm pretty harsh on myself. Like, so can you go through a day? Can you go through an hour? Can you go through a minute without cutting yourself down? And so those are, some little things that you can do to again help move forward by not beating yourself up. I think that's really important. And again, can you I love affirmations or incantations. So, looking at what are things that you want? What's something that you could say? I honor myself at all times. I am now doing the very best for myself that I can. That doesn't mean that it's the very best in your whole life. It's the very best for yourself right now with what you can do. And when you have an affirmation or incantation, you want to add an emotion to it. That think of a time that's an amazing time where you felt joy, exuberance, love, grace, peace, and feel that, and then say that affirmation. Breathe in it, and then move forward. And every day I do it. Whether I'm running up and down the stairs, I'm driving to the grocery store, I'm sitting at a street light. I like to do like cold plunges. And so I get in the cold plunge, and once I can breathe again, I run through like my affirmations and my incantations, and I run through my affirmations of what I am. I am strong, I am wise, I am free, I am unstoppable. Everything I need is inside of me. So those are really some activities that you can do. So um, you can start to move into where you're at. Again, acceptance is always that first place, and accept. I was so shocked when I did the I love you into the mirror, and I struggled and I started crying and I had a really hard time telling myself that. It, and I didn't even understand why. Because I have a good life. I mean, I have great kids. My husband's wonderful. I have a loving family and lots of support. And so I was really surprised that I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and say that to myself without being really emotional. And I was like, oh, that's just not going to work. Like, and so doing those things was really important. So I would say that.
Thank you so much. No matter how little we do so ourselves, it is ourselves. If we can, give ourselves the self acceptance despite the position we find ourselves, it helps us a lot. It helps us to the point of emotional healing. It helps us regain emotional strength because we have the physical part and also the inner part, which we have to also deal with as well regarding the time that we are unhurt. So if we can actually use the small affirmation, as you said, positive things that we can actually say to ourselves, it really, really, really helps because sometimes when we try these little things, we grow really emotional. We cannot believe how really powerful it seems to us. We just feel like our mind is just giving the sense of releasing a lot of burdens that has been with us for a long time. And as women, it's always sound really, really emotional. And that is why we have to try our best to give the sense of positive affirmation and also give ourselves the self-acceptance and self-love. It really helps us and also help us to become more better and more stronger in the world around ourselves. Thank you so much, Mrs. Kelly. And Mrs. Kelly, there is also a question I normally ask during the end of the show from our forefathers, from our ancestors. There are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Kelly, what do you think that thing would be, Mrs. Kelly?
I think that strong family. You know, I'm very fortunate. I have my sister lives on one side and my parents live on the house on the other side. And we call it compound living and we love it. But you know, a couple times a week we get together and we eat together. Um, or if, you know, somebody needs a little help out, or hey, I ran out of sugar, whatever those things are, but it brings us together. And so when my girls come home, they love coming home because everyone is there and there's a strong connection. uh, you know, my parents with my children and the time that they spend, and I know that on both sides they cherish those opportunities and and learn a lot, and you know, we're able to share our experiences or our history and our knowledge, you know, with our children or my parents with my children. And that's so important because, you know, so much with our phones and with everything, and it's everything's a short clip. And a lot of times I feel that there's emotion is being taken out, and like that just sense of compassion is being um lost because we don't really understand where people were before, and the stories are not always passed down, or they're passed down but they're not passed down with the emotion and with the realness of what you know what happened in a situation. And I think that we learn so much from each other when we're able to come together and share
Yes.
that. And um you know, I think that's really really important to um to have that sense, because your ancestors are there. They're there, you know, holding you up
Yes.
and there to guide you, and you can look to them and ask for that guidance. But if you have no connection to your past and to your ancestors, then you know, because you haven't shared your about your ancestors or about your family, then you can't bring it forward and it will be lost, and that's a sad thing to lose.
Sincerely appreciate. During our time, during the old time, rather, there is something that we know that people are always around. You know, we could be in a community, grow old there, and even probably even leave the world around that community where we find ourselves, which give the sense of emotional healing and make people really feel loved. And if
Yeah.
we do agree, people live really long at that time. And that is
Yes.
when we actually integrate the sense of technology that actually come in. Nobody expected it. It came in very fast, very, very fast. And when it came in, people just used it. And that's what happened. People just used it. And now it is getting to a point whereby it has caused serious damage, and it has also caused the good as well in some areas. We just have to be in
Absolutely.
a position to actually build the sense of line through it and use it as a source to actually connect everyone and also make people to feel loved as we are doing currently, and also make people to understand how they can be impacted and how they can grow as well. I'm so glad that you have people around you, your family around you, who are actually coming around and showing companion. It is actually very, very helpful. I think if there are situations we can learn from each other, and also what we are doing as well to out there for people to also learn as well. I want to thank you for the time, the opportunity you've given to me to actually have this sense of very important discussion, because whether we like it or not, so far the death hasn't come. We actually grow old. We actually get to a certain age where things will be really, really tough for us. And we have to use this as a source to actually learn from people like you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Kelly.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, Mrs.
Absolutely.
Kelly.
I really appreciate it. I would love to encourage anyone that needs a sense of community to check out thenestevolution.com, and come in and join our community as we work through um, these types of situations and what we can do to move forward in our lives so that we can rediscover our strength and design our next chapter in life. Thank you.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I hope they actually go around and also join your community as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Kelly. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.